Well, a lot of us will be watching the coronation this Saturday, but a new poll suggested that half the country would rather be living in a republic. Joining me from both sides of this debate, royal commentator Sarah Robertson. Thanks for coming in, Sarah, looking utterly gorgeous and completely the part. She's in the mood, as you can see. And Riz Possnet from campaigning group Republic. Let's start with you, Riz. Obviously, you're part of the half of the population, if that is a true survey. Goodness knows if it is or isn't, because we keep getting all sorts of different results and different figures, who would rather live in a republic and would like to ditch the monarchy. So maybe you'd explain why. Why is that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few arguments that I'd be happy to go into. But really the key ones are about democracy, British democracy, and also about the economy, and just about the history of the royal family and where our national pride comes from, and if they're really a good sort of representation of that.
Okay, well, go. I mean, I've asked the question. What's the answer? What are your reasons? You'd like to live in a republic. Yeah. I realise what the issues are, but what are your reasons? What's your response to those issues?
Yeah, so with regards to democracy, we are one of few countries in the world that doesn't have an elected head of state. We just don't have a total, complete democracy. And Britain really, really needs that shift towards democracy. I think if we have an elected person who is the head of state, they can do a far better job of representing the interests of British people in the political sphere. Now,
okay, let me bring Sarah in to counter that. Yeah. You think we do better and our interests would be better represented?
I'm afraid not, Vanessa, no. I mean, she says that we don't have a democracy. Great Britain gave democracy to the rest of the world. I mean, I'm not sure what history she was taught in school. We've seen, obviously, look what's going on with politics right now. The rows, the spats that are going on. People are saying Rishi Sunak's not fit to govern. You know, whatever Prime Minister comes in, it's a poison chalice. When we fight over our own Prime Ministers, which are elected, how can you then criticise the monarchy? We live in a constitutional monarchy. It's over 1,000 years old. It was there before us. It's going to be there after us. And I would much rather them, and we have King Charles, than the likes of President Tony Blair coming in, which, you know, you seem like you want to go into sort of a globalist state from the way that you're talking, Riz.
To be clear, this is about electing a head of state who can better represent the interests of British people. That's not what Charles does.
But you do elect because you go and vote, don't you, when it's a general election or the local election. So you get to have your vote and who's going to be Prime Minister.
In our political system, we have a Prime Minister, yes, and a head of state, which was the Queen, now will be the King. And my point here is we need an elected head of state in Britain. You know, the monarchy cannot represent the interests of British people.
But instead, it does. It's brilliant at representing the interests of people. The amount of money the monarchy generates for our country, it is the most successful trading bloc I think we have. Most PLCs would absolutely love to have the figures. It costs us over 100 million a year. That's £1 per person, and it brings in revenues in billions, over £1 billion a year.
Let me ask something.
Which business would not like those figures?
Riz, only very recently we had this extraordinary phenomenon of the queue to pay respects to the Queen as she lay in state. And I filmed from that queue on a few days, and it was really remarkable to me to see the huge breadth of different people of different ages, from different countries, from different walks of life, different social classes, different professions, all of whom had come, Riz, to pay tribute to Her Majesty. They were all emotionally touched by it. Lots of them talked about the effect that she'd had on them throughout their lives. Some of them had served in the armed forces or the police force. And I wonder, when you saw that queue of people snaking so slowly towards Her Majesty to pay tribute to her and pay respects, did you not find that to be a moving sight? And did you not find it to be an extremely unifying, cohesive urge to go to pay tribute to Her Majesty?
So actually, no. The answer is I really didn't find that to be a unifying moment. I think what's important to understand here is so many people in modern Britain cannot possibly have a positive association with the modern family. This is a family that has a history steeped in colonization, in slavery, and in exploitation of the British working class in general. And there just isn't that positive association there with many people in royal Britain. And I think
hang on a minute. I mean, we'll leave the issue of slavery to one side just this time, just because we won't have time to deal with something in that kind of depth. But when you say exploitation of the working classes, I'm reminded of the Queen Mother, so the late Queen's mother, who during the Blitz stayed in London, didn't go away to somewhere safe, didn't send her children off to America or something, and said, and the exact quotation was, "I can look the East End in the face," because she had stayed, and so had the King, and so had their children, Elizabeth and Margaret, for the whole of the Second World War, with their people in danger of a bomb falling on their heads and at any moment and killing them. They'd stay shoulder to shoulder. I wonder what you mean by exploiting the working classes particularly.
So to be clear, this is not about individuals, but the rest of London was there. There are individual people who are making massive profit, living totally luxurious lifestyles. And at this point, I do want to come back to the economic argument, because you did raise it, Sarah. We have extensive evidence that the monarchy is not economically profitable. The coronation is going to cost us a huge amount. You've talked about the security necessary, but also in the closure of roads, of businesses. Look at France and the palaces that are constantly open to the public and to tourism there. So that
France
would be
is on fire at the moment. It's burning. So much for them having a Viva la Republic for them. It's not working, is it? I mean, you've got to think what the money that is going to come into this country from the tourism of people who are coming to see the coronation. London is looking wonderful at the moment. Flags are everywhere. It's unifying. It puts us on the world stage. And there is no country in the world that does pomp and ceremony like Great Britain. It's what we're known for. It's what we're respected for. It's why so many tourists come over here. We have got the biggest, best monarchy in the world, and it's the reason why it's lasted for as long as it has, because of what it generates and the respect that it generates as well. Who's going to come over for a dinner with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak? No one. You know, people come over to see the King, to see the royal family, to look in awe at that sense of history and what Britain stands for, and that is tied up with the British monarchy. It is a fantastic institution and one that we should all be so proud of.
Riz, will you be watching the coronation? Will you be watching the coronation on Saturday? And if you will, you're not going to watch
Vanessa,
it.
I would like to just respond to some of those points first. With regards to tourism, we have strong evidence that this coronation is not going to be good for tourism, and people actually tend to avoid the crowds. With regards to pomp and ceremony, that is absolutely true. That's what this event will be. And I genuinely believe that so many British people coming out of a winter where people have had to choose between heating and eating are going to feel like it's a total slap in the face to see the Queen riding through the street in a golden carriage and a crown. Just one moment, Sarah.
Okay.
And you also made the point about British pride and British excellence. I think we have far better representations of that. Like, we have so many things to be proud of as a nation, and this family is not high up the list.
So what will you be doing on Saturday, Riz, just out of interest?
So on Saturday, many people will be protesting in London, but I will be organising an event in my city. I remember the street parties as a child from the Jubilee, the Olympics. They were joyful events. And as I've said, I think there's better sources of British pride. So I'll be putting on a happy, exciting event in my city, talking to people about republicanism and raising for local homelessness charities, because I live in a city with extreme economic inequality.
Can I just ask, Riz, if you were asked to have a meeting with King Charles or one of the members of the royal family, would you accept that invitation? Would you tell everybody about it? Or would you say, no, I'm shunning that. I don't like the monarchy. I'm not going to go.
So this is not a personal issue, right? I have really no interest in Charles as a person. As far as I'm concerned, he's just some guy.
But it's not about the person. This is where I have to take brunt with this issue. Is people think it's about the person. It's not. It's about the institution. It's the crown. It's not about Charles. It's the crown itself. And I think if you don't believe in the monarchy, you're not believing in the crown, and you're not believing in this country.
Thank you both. Thank you very much indeed for putting your views cogently and respectfully of one another. Much appreciated, you both. Thank you very much.